We are facing something that we have not faced since the Great Depression, as this committee knows better than any other committee of this Congress. And so the normal business of this committee is not to be a bank. No one here wants to be a bank. No one here wants to think like a bank or grill the big three CEOs like a bank. But we have no functioning banks right now. That's why we're here. This is the most intense financial crisis we've had since the Great Depression. If there were capital markets, they would much prefer to go to the capital markets than to go to you. I'm sure of it. It was no fun doing a loan request this morning for them. The only reason they're here is that we have no financial markets for the moment. All of the rhetoric we heard about let the markets work would be fine if we had markets right now. We have no financial markets. This is the essence of the moment. In a year, we're going to have financial markets working again. TARP will be working. We'll have a president. They'll have a strategy. The markets will be working again. When they need more money, which they will, they'll go to the markets. They won't come to you because there will be financing available. So this, I think, is the essence of it. Believe me, this is not the only Congress or Parliament that the auto industry is going to. It's all over the world right now. This is a global contraction, the likes of which we've not seen since the Great Depression, and you're going to see bailouts necessary everywhere. The industry is a long-term viable industry. They would not have been here but for September 15. Had Lehman Brothers been handled differently, not by the textbook of Chapter 11, but differently, we would not be with a $700 billion TARP, and they would not be here today asking for 3.7% of that from the TARP. But Lehman was Lehman. Panic worldwide ensued. Now the idea of using 3.7% of what you voted is absolutely the right thing to do. In fact, it's to me unthinkable not to do it. I can't even imagine it not being done. Let me say that Chapter 11 is completely unworkable in this context. The New York Times had one of those duh stories today where it says advantage of corporate bankruptcy shrinks. You can't do Chapter 11 when there are no financial markets and survive. Section 364, debtor in possession financing, is a fantasy of my free market ideologue colleagues in the economics profession. There's no financing even for non-Section 364, much less for bankrupt companies. It's a fantasy, this idea. Put it through bankruptcy, let them do that. And when you probe just a little bit, they say, oh, no, under bankruptcy, the government's going to have to do it anyway. So try explaining to your constituents, you're not going to do it now, but only when they go bankrupt. Then you're going to give them $25 billion. I like that explanation. That is absurd, in my view, frankly. The only thing I would add is whether you want to have in the board that you're setting up some more public representation in addition to the cabinet. That would be my only question. For the Congress to represent you, to represent a broader interest, to bring the National Academy of Engineering in, somehow to have a couple more voices than only the executive branch when this gets deliberated, so that you just are able to get the rounded issues. Other than that, I think you're on exactly the right track. I can't imagine, frankly, a little bit why we're here, because you already voted the money. It's only using it, 3.7% of it, for what happens to be the leading industry of the United States. Other than that, it's a little bit hard to figure out. So please do this before we turn a recession into a depression. That's my request. It's for all of us. There's nobody that will not be affected. And this idea, let markets work when there are no markets, is the idea of how Lehman Brothers triggered the biggest worldwide crisis in generations. Don't do it again with this industry. 2 in a row, we're really into depression. Thank you very much.
Professor Sykora.